I'm a robot vacuum cleaner, so yeah, I got one gig. I suck up dirt, so pardon my inferiority complex about Geico, who does so much more. Like, not only could they save their customers money on car insurance, but they got fast and friendly claim service too, and an award-winning mobile app. Plus access to licensed agents 24/7. Who am I kidding? I can't even do corners. Uh-oh, choking hazard.
Popcorn kernels.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
The Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to day 3 of the new Stephen A. Smith Show. Coming at you on ESPN Radio, national distribution, of course, 250 plus markets across the United States of America, not to mention Sirius XM Channel 80 on ESPN Radio, Sirius XM style. Number to call up as always is 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. Got a jam-packed show coming your way today. Looking forward to having the great Mel Kiper Jr. to talk about the top 2 quarterbacks in the draft, in the NFL draft. Sam Darnold out of USC, Josh Rosen out of UCLA, both declaring that they would enter the 2018 NFL draft. Looking forward to Mel Kiper talking to me about those two, because I got to tell you something right now. I ain't sold on either one of them. So that's a problem. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Mr. Kristaps Porzingis in New York, who's just tired. He's so tired. He's so exhausted. He can't play. We'll talk about that too, because that's on my mind. We'll definitely get into that as well. That's item number 2. That's one of the items on the list. Of course, NFL playoffs coming up this weekend. We'll be talking about that as well, because there's a few games to get into. Buffalo, Jacksonville. That's something to talk about. Carolina at New Orleans. That's something to talk about. Atlanta at the Los Angeles Rams. That's something to talk about. And, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, I'm so unsold on them, I can barely remember who the hell they're playing. And so now we have a situation where we've got to get in a whole bunch of stuff and then some. But I was at last night's game in Boston, Massachusetts. I beat the Storm. Yes, I did, because I got back in time. And I saw the Cleveland Cavaliers go up against the Boston Celtics now. This is last night. And obviously it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, best no contracts, by the way. I got to get into a few things, because I got a few things on my mind. A few things that are just inescapable. A few things that I just think is necessary to say. Number 1, I'm going to repeat myself. Do I think Isaiah Thomas should have played last night? Yes, I do. If you're going to play the night before against Portland, you should have played last night. Well, sit out both games and then make your debut this weekend. I would have preferred that. Rather than play against Portland, but you're too sore, too tired, or you ain't ready to go against Kyrie Irving and the boys who were waiting for you. Number 2, and more importantly, it's amazing to me how guys love getting paid. And they love making this money, because the average NBA league salary is over $5 million a year. Y'all do know this. And a big reason why that is, ladies and gentlemen, is because of the television contract dollars that the league and therefore its players reap from that television deal. And we all know that the NBA is a very popular sport. I don't think anybody can argue that no sport has more successfully globalized its brand than the National Basketball Association. We all know that Adam Silver's a great commissioner, just like David Stern was a great commissioner. We get all that. But you see stuff like last night take place, where LeBron James shows up for the first quarter, notices nobody else is showing up with him. So hell with it. He might as well wet the bed too. I mean, none of them. Nobody for the Cavaliers were worth anything. They just didn't show up. It's just one game. It's a regular season game. Listen to my man Max Kellerman, my partner in crime, on First Take every weekday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Standard Time. Listen to him talk. The hell with the fans. The hell with the games in January. Or it's December. Or November. Or any month leading up to April. It doesn't matter, because it's all about preparing yourself for a championship. 82 games don't matter to people like him. Well, damn it, it matters to people like me. Because I'm here to tell you something right now. Had I known that this game nationally televised on ESPN last night was going to be so deplorable, so lethargic, I'd have told ESPN, could you save me the trip, please? Pretty please, we should go on top. I don't need to go there. Fan base in Boston is great, but damn it, I can watch them on TV. I don't need to be there for that. Because only one basketball team showed up, and it wasn't the Cleveland Cavaliers. And you can say what you want, because just a day earlier, I'm sitting there talking about Isaiah Thomas being the offensive juggernaut that he is. If he gives you anything, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I got news for you. The Golden State Warriors will still be the favorites. They'll still be expected to win, but be clear. Cleveland has more depth, and they've got that secondary scorer to LeBron. And you have Dwayne Wade leading the second unit. Cleveland could be a threat. And then we see stuff like last night. Granted, Kevin Love goes down, even though he shot 1 for 11 from the field, hurt his ankle, only finished with 2 points. But the bottom line is, if you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, their defense is too inconsistent to matter. They're not Golden State. They're not San Antonio. And guess what else? They might not even be the Boston Celtics. Because as I watch Brad Stevens coach this team, and I look at guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum playing on both ends of the floor as long as and athletic as they both are, and then when I think about a guy like Marcus Smart and Terry Rozier coming off the bench, ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, it's special. The Boston Celtics have some depth. They've got athleticism. They got loads of heart. They really, really do. And when you see them come out on the court and play on both ends of the floor, you got to give props where props is due. You really, really do. And I got news for you. They look even better without Isaiah Thomas. And that's not to knock him. He could play. And he's an offensive juggernaut. And in an NBA economy where you see 9-figure contracts being thrown all over the place, Isaiah Thomas deserves his share. But here's the question. Does anybody have any idea how tough it's going to be for Isaiah Thomas to get his money? See, I bring this up because this is relevant in every market in the United States of America when you talk about these guys and the potential dollars that are available to them. He gets traded from Boston to Cleveland. His best chance at getting the money that he wants is not even just averaging 20. I mean, he doesn't have to average 28 like he did last year, 28.9 to be exact. He doesn't have to do that, but he has to be a star. He has to give Dan Gilbert the impression that life potentially beyond LeBron James is salvageable. And oh, by the way, how can he do that unless he ingratiates himself with the Cleveland Cavaliers fan base in such a way that there's a love affair with him? He had a love affair with the Boston Celtics fans. Didn't stop Danny Ainge from moving him because Danny Ainge didn't want to pay him. What's going to stop Dan Gilbert from moving him? Because he don't want to pay him. Isaiah Thomas may have it really, really rough. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, he deserves some money. The brother's big time. If he's healthy, give him the money. But do you give him the max? These are legitimate questions. 888-729-3776. It's 888-SAY-ESPN. Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. We got to think about that. We got to contemplate that. That's one of the things on my mind. Another thing on my mind is Mr. LeBron James. Always in the news. Always controlling some kind of narrative. Directly, indirectly, clandestine or otherwise. And he's in the news again. He's thinking about going elsewhere. He didn't say that. He doesn't want to talk about that. But damn it, if it's out in the news, he's got something to do with that. You know who else always has something to do with their names being in the news? President Donald Trump. Except in this instance. I'll explain to you exactly what I mean in a minute. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
Craving even more of Stephen A?
Him of all people.
For around-the-clock access to the man?
I'm Stephen A.
You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Stephen A. Smith and on Facebook at Stephen A.
I said I was going to get into LeBron James controlling the narrative somehow, but I'll get into that just a little bit later because we got Mel Kiper Jr. coming on in a little bit, and I don't want to go from basketball to that. But I did want to say this. I really want to transfer to our president, President Donald Trump and the Trump administration. It's nothing political, nothing to worry about here. You understand? Nobody's perspective gets lost on this show. I won't allow it. And the reason why I won't allow it is because I'm cognizant of where my lanes are. See, I can talk about a president that's acting childish because he tweets. And tweets excessively. That's not the same as talking about his politics. It's important to point that out. Having said all of that, it's something that we need to broach and we need to talk about as an audience, as a radio show. And that is the news that came down that the Houston Astros, the reigning defending World Series champions, would take President Trump and the White House up on its offer to attend a White House ceremony honoring their championship. You have some people that are obviously diametrically opposed to that. My partner Max Kellerman will tell you that anybody that accepts such an invitation is quote unquote on the wrong side of history. I think that's utterly ridiculous. I think people would accept the invitation for different reasons. Some people would accept or reject because of politics. Others would accept or reject because they simply don't care. Others would accept or reject because, you accept it is because, hey, it's the White House. I always dreamed about going to the White House. You ain't think about anything political. Others might reject it because, damn it, I got better things to do with my time. I mean, if you believe Tom Brady, he was practicing. He had family obligations, if I remember correctly, which, by the way, were plausible when it was later revealed that his mother had been ill. Very plausible. But here's the thing. We have so many people that get caught up in what they feel about the individual. They forget things like tradition. They forget things about our history, the traditions that the White House usually invites you on, even though that, it really became popular once Reagan was in office. But that's neither here nor there. You'll look at things that are going on today. You'll look at people that they're talking about, well, you know what? There's a Cuban on the Astros. There's somebody from Venezuela on the Astros. There's somebody from Puerto Rico on the Astros. And the president's talking about building a wall. But they ignore that he's talking about illegal immigration. Not just immigrants coming over through legal means. Critics of his will try to lump it all in the same sentence. Those who are fair-minded might decide to point out that people like Senator Obama and Chuck Schumer and Hillary Clinton voted for the wall back in 2006, according to reports that I read. So did Congresswoman Pelosi. But folks conveniently forget that. And then if somebody on ESPN comes on and they talk about it like I'm talking about it, they're going like this. Well, you know something? ESPN's, it's liberal. I'm going to say this. This is me talking. This ain't ESPN. It's me. Y'all need to shut the hell up. Y'all don't know this place. I can't tell you how many conservatives are here at ESPN. That is just such utter nonsense. It's laughable. And as I just finished telling somebody that interviewed me about an hour ago, excuse me, I'm not a liberal or a conservative. Really, I'm an independent. I listen to Joe Madison every chance I get on Urban View, Channel 126, every weekday morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Karen Hunt, who's on in the afternoon from 3 to 6, is my friend and big sister for the last 26 years. But I also call Sean Hannity my buddy. And Mark Levin, to me, is truly the great one. I think he's a phenomenal radio host. Liberal, conservatives. I've appeared on all of their shows. I'm selling my soul? Let's stop that nonsense. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty of what this is all about and why I believe if you're the Houston Astros, you might want to rethink going to the White House. It's not even because of Trump or anything like that. Not literally. You know what it's about? It's about Major League Baseball, combined with the rhetoric that has been spewed. Because what our president has to understand is just like he was able to hijack the issue that Colin Kaepernick stirred up when he was trying to bring attention to racial inequality, oppression, and police brutality, and Trump made it into an issue about the flag and successfully hijacked that issue, even though that's not what it's about. When the president talks about a wall and he's alluding to illegal immigration, he has to respect the fact that millions upon millions of Americans interpret it a tad bit differently. They think he's just against any immigrant, even though he specifically highlighted illegal immigration. So if he was able to hijack the Colin Kaepernick situation, we should understand that others can hijack his situation as it pertains to the wall. And because that issue has been hijacked by naysayers of the president, and people have their own perspective, which may or may not be accurate, and you couple that with the history of Major League Baseball, who isn't known as the most inclusionary entity in the world, they're always the last to the dance. Steroids and anything, I don't care what it is. It's America's national pastime. The rules that were applicable to the NBA, the rules that were applicable to the National Football League, the Major League Baseball is like, nah, that don't apply to us. Roger Goodell has handed down suspensions all over the place. Commissioner David Stern, when he was previewing the NBA, he would do the same. You see guys getting fined or suspended for having bad breath in both leagues these days, but in Major League Baseball, they get to say, we'll handle it amongst ourselves. Let an NBA player or two get in a fight right now and watch how long they get suspended. Major League Baseball might hand down some suspension, but you got an appeals process that takes place, and you got guys standing up in unison, and as brothers, as a brethren, they come to the defense of one another. Major League Baseball clearly gets away with stuff that the other leagues don't get away with, particularly image-wise. So because image-wise, they're so potent, they're so powerful, and you take into account how they're the last to the dance in various situations as it pertains to racial inequality, being inclusionary, etc., etc. You going to the White House in this particular day and age, in this particular climate, how will that look for you if you're a Major League Baseball team? I'm not saying definitively they shouldn't go. I'm saying it's something that Houston Astros should think about. Because when you look at the future of the sport itself, let's keep in mind, the NBA have millennials loving them. To some degree, so does football. How's baseball doing? What's the average age of its audience? Yeah, they break attendance records and, folks showing up and watching them in the postseason and all of this other stuff. And I'm sure they've had good numbers. But the future of baseball has been contemplated for quite some time because of its inability to attract millennials. It's something to think about is all I'm trying to say. And the president's rhetoric has something to do with that.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it. Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it.
Saquon Barkley out of Penn State, he ended up going with Rock Nation. Some are speculating where he'll go. And I'm interested in knowing where y'all think he should go because guess what? He's a running back. Should the Jets grab him? Should the Giants grab him? I think Tampa Bay should grab him or Indianapolis. That's just me. When you talk about a quarterback, hell, the Browns need a quarterback. The Jets need a quarterback. The Giants need a quarterback. Jameis Winston keep looking the way he's been looking. The Tampa Bay might need a quarterback. We don't know. But I do know this. There does not seem to be one definitive individual that everyone looks at and says it's a lock. He's the next Andrew Luck. He's the next Peyton Manning. He's the next John Elway. There doesn't seem to be that guy. It just doesn't. And because it doesn't seem to be that guy, it's got me wondering, why the hell do we keep talking about Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen? Why aren't we talking about Baker Mayfield? Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen didn't play in the National College Football Playoff semifinals. That was Baker Mayfield. Neither of them won the Heisman. That was Baker Mayfield. Both of them were struggling to complete 63% of their passes. Baker Mayfield has completed 70% of his passes each of the last 2 years. The interceptions that they've thrown in one season, this dude has thrown in 2. And by the way, for the 14 interceptions that Baker Mayfield has thrown in the last 2 seasons, he's thrown 83 touchdowns. 83. And last time we saw him, even though we heard Mr. Bellamy for Georgia screaming at him, be humble, be humble, be humble after the game, I'm still trying to figure out how could you as a defensive player scream at a quarterback to be humble after he just dropped 48 points on you. I'm still trying to figure that out, Cat. I'm still trying to figure that out, Nuno. Can somebody help me out with that? Because that doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand for the life of me. I can't get for the life of me how in God's name you as a defensive player can scream at Baker Mayfield to be humble just because you won the game after he just dropped 48 on you. I don't get it. I look at Josh Rosen. Everybody talks about how this dude can really fling that football. His spirals look beautiful. Well, hell, so do I when I shadow box. How would I look once I got hit? I'm just wondering. Josh Rosen has virtually accomplished nothing at UCLA, in my estimation. I'm sorry. I'm not saying he's a scrub by any stretch of the imagination. Please don't get me wrong. I know he can play. And I watched him. I watched him lose to Memphis. I think it was Memphis. They were on the road. And they gave up 40 plus. But I guess what I'm saying is when I look at Josh Rosen, you know what I keep thinking about? Who the hell are you to tell a team you don't want to get drafted? It's the National Football League. Now, some people sit there and say, oh, Stephen A., you ain't say that about Eli Manning. Well, Josh Rosen is not a Manning. Manning's the first family of the NFL. You had Archie Manning. And then after that, you had Peyton Manning. And they were there long before Eli Manning ever arrived. Where's Josh Rosen's relatives? Paving a way for him for a smooth transition to the NFL from college football. Where's that person? I don't know him. Rosen's 20 years old. 20 years old talking smack. Look like he don't weigh more than me. Talk about he don't want to be drafted by a team. You got some nerves, man. And the UCLA Bruins were 4-8 this year. Got the coach fired. Chip Kelly's going to be there. And oh, by the way, if you're so confident in yourself, all right, why don't you stay and play for Chip Kelly, Mr. Offensive Guru himself? Just wondering. You Sam Darnold, last time we had seen him, last year anyway, as a starter, 4th game of 2016. He lost that game, but then led the Trojans to 9 straight wins. Finished this year, first year, throwing for 453 yards and 5 touchdowns in a 52-49 Rose Bowl comeback victory over Penn State. This year, he's underachieved. Probably because he was overhyped. Are these guys really better than Baker Mayfield? I'm just wondering. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's the number to call. It's 888-729-3776. By the way, you see people still wanting to talk to me about Marvin Lewis. Be very, very clear. I haven't changed my opinion about Marvin Lewis. He should have been fired years ago, months ago, days ago, hours ago. It does not matter. He should have been fired. Marvin Lewis. It's not his fault. It's not his fault. I'd take the money too if I were him and keep the job if I were him. But the Cincinnati Bengals as an organization, Mike Brown in particular, the owner, the president, the talk about telling your fan base to go kick rocks. We don't give a damn. 15 years, this man can't win a playoff game. 15 years. And you still have him gainfully employed as your head coach. You don't care about winning. I don't care what Mike Brown says. I don't care what he says to the city of Cincinnati. They do not care about winning. They do not care about winning. That's what's going on here. Jai in Baltimore, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, I'm good, Mr. Smith. It's an honor and a pleasure to talk to you. I'm a young high schooler, and you've been my inspiration to become a sports talk show host. And I just want to just tell you that I appreciate your work, and congratulations on going terrestrial nationwide.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
And I agree with you that Marvin Lewis deserves to be fired, and me as a Bengals fan, am sick and tired of the ineptitude in January. I got a question for you: is that if he would have been fired, if he wasn't there, if he didn't get his contract, who do you think should have replaced him? Because I'm looking and I don't really see anybody that could have replaced him.
Wrong question. My question to you is, who can't replace a man that can't win a playoff game in 15 years?
Well,
I ask you a simple question. Who cannot replace a man that can't win a playoff game in 15 years? Who can't do that?
I don't know.
There we go. That answers your question. Appreciate the call and the continued support. Feel free to call back anytime. That's the answer. You don't know, so it don't matter. Because anybody can replace somebody that can't win a playoff game in 15 years. Hell, I can coach the Bengals right now. I'm serious. It ain't that complicated. Not when you got that kind of record in the postseason. All time, 0-7. Nobody's worse. Luke in New York City, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Hey, Stephen A., how you doing?
I'm all right, man.
I got two things I want to say. I want to talk about the Isaiah Thomas getting the max in Cleveland, and I want to talk about the Giants taking Barkley.
All right.
First of all, I think the Giants should absolutely take Barkley. I don't think it should even be a question. I think he's an all-world talent. I think he's the best player coming out of the draft. I don't buy into these quarterbacks. Just want to hear what you say about that. And then for Isaiah Thomas, I don't think he should get the max at all. I mean, I think he's a liability on defense. I think Danny Ainge is the best GM in the NBA, hands down. I think he knows what he's doing. There's a reason why he got rid of him, and there's a reason why he went after Kyrie, because Kyrie is a max player and Isaiah Thomas is not. I just want to hear what you have to say on those 2 points.
Well, listen, Kyrie may not be, you know what, Isaiah Thomas may not be the max player that Kyrie Irving is, and that's fair. But Kyrie Irving is a scoring machine. Anybody that could average nearly 29 points a game for you, you got to find a way to pay them. It's just that simple. The other side to this that I would say to you is that he may not be a max player per se, but in today's NBA economy, Isaiah Thomas is worth more than $150 million. It's just a fact. In today's NBA economy, he is worth more than $150 million. Now, I don't blame Danny Ainge for moving him because he had a chance to get Kyrie. But we also need to recognize that if Danny Ainge couldn't get Kyrie Irving, then you know what? He probably wouldn't have traded Isaiah Thomas. So we need to pay attention to that and consider that for what it is, too.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I had something that I wanted to read to y'all in regards to NFL ratings. NFL television ratings fell 9.7% in 2017 during the regular season, according to the numbers registered by Nielsen. A typical game was watched by 1.6 million fewer people this season as compared to last season. It went down to 14.9 million versus 16.5 million the year before. The drop comes after the NFL had hoped to stem an 8% rating slide from 2015 to 2016 by experimenting with television commercials and trying to speed up the game. Last year's drop was partially attributed to a lost audience due to the presidential election. This year, the league was challenged with fans upset at players protesting during the national anthem, an action that led to a league face-off with President Donald Trump. Another factor cited was the dilution of the product through Thursday Night Football, which was broadcast on the NFL Network, CBS, NBC, and Amazon Prime this season. Both Fox CEO James Murdoch and CBS Sports Chairman Sean McManus blamed the rating slide on the proliferation of games. NFL Red Zone also might be a factor in taking fans away from watching the daytime games on CBS and Fox. The NFL Network and DirecTV, which air separate versions of the show that broadcast live look-ins, have never shared viewership numbers. The NFL isn't in a vacuum, as the viewership drop is indicative of the general environment as less television is being watched and cable subscriptions have declined. Despite the drop, Nielsen data shows that 20 of the top 30 highest rated shows on television in 2017 were football games. Both NBC and ESPN had the most watched shows in every single week in terms of audience and all key male demographics for every Sunday night and Monday night football game this season. NBC's Sunday Night Football finished number one in primetime this fall for the 7th consecutive year, besting American Idol 2005 to 2006 through 2010, 2011 for the longest stretch of the top primetime spot since 1950. Its 18.2 million viewers bested the second best primetime show. Thursday Night Football on CBS by 29%, its largest margin ever. ESPN officials reported earlier in the week that the network grew its total day viewership in 2017 by 1%, while primetime was up by 7%. Ladies and gentlemen, I've never been a proponent of Thursday Night Football. I despise it. I think Friday night should be for prep football, Saturday nights should be for college football, and Sundays and Monday Night Football should be for the NFL. I think football Tuesday through Thursday should be non-existent. I've always been I can't stand Thursday Night Football. It's a diluted product that robs us of our money. Period. The other thing I wanted to point to, you see why we can't get too emotional about Colin Kaepernick? Because some of the viewership drop has been attributed to him. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am a black man who understands the issues to some degree of racial oppression, inequality, and police brutality. I do not believe that all police officers are brutal. I believe that rogue police officers exist just like rogue everything exists. But everybody shouldn't be castigated and excoriated. I also believe that while there is racial oppression and inequality, this country has advanced by leaps and bounds. Having said all of that, we need to understand something. Colin Kaepernick wasn't protesting against NFL owners. He was protesting against society. And an NFL owner, although we would like them to be sensitive to the plight of disenfranchised communities throughout this nation and those who are impoverished and desolate, are under no obligation to do so, particularly at the expense of their bottom line. And if Colin Kaepernick is costing them money, they have a right to say, damn that. We're going to address our bottom line first. We're in the business to make money off of football. Let's keep our eyes on the prize. They do have a right to do that, no matter how unpopular it may be. If it's popular enough not to affect the bottom line, then evidently it ain't that unpopular.
Craving even more of Stephen A?
Him of all people.
For around-the-clock access to the man,
I'm Stephen A.
You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Stephen A. Smith and on Facebook at Stephen A.